Cleopatra. The name alone conjures up images of a woman of unparalleled beauty, draped in the finest silks, ruling with an iron fist. But let's face reality, she was more than just a pretty face with a penchant for eyeliner. This woman was a political genius, a master manipulator, and quite possibly the best lover in history. Yes, you heard it right. Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt, was not just ruling a kingdom. She was ruling the hearts of the most powerful men of her time. And how did she do it? Well, that's a story worth telling. So, let's dive into the world of political intrigue, scandalous affairs, and power plays. Welcome to the life of Cleopatra, the woman who turned love into an art form. Cleopatra. Born in 69 BC, Cleopatra was not just Egyptian royalty, but a cocktail of various cultures. Greek by descent, she was the first in her family to actually speak the Egyptian language. Raised in the opulence of the Ptolemaic court, Cleopatra was no stranger to power plays and political maneuvering. Her father, Ptolemy XII, was a weak ruler, more interested in the finer things in life than in running a kingdom. So, when he passed away, the throne naturally went to the eldest child. But here's the twist. Cleopatra was not the eldest. It was her brother, Ptolemy XIII, who was all of 10 years old at the time. But Cleopatra was not one to sit on the sidelines while a child played king. Oh no, she was a woman with a plan. She became co-ruler with her brother. But let's be real, she was the one pulling the strings. Egypt, at the time, was a hotbed of political unrest, with Rome slowly extending its influence. But Cleopatra, ever the shrewd politician, knew how to play the game. Enter Julius Caesar, the most powerful man in Rome. Cleopatra, in a move that was part political strategy, part survival instinct, aligned herself with Caesar. And when I say aligned, I mean they became lovers. Now, this was not just a fling. This was a calculated move by a woman who knew that alliances were sealed not just in the Senate, but also in the bedroom. The early life of Cleopatra, a tale of power, politics, and passion. A woman who knew how to use love as a weapon. Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt, was not just a ruler, but a woman who knew the art of seduction like no other. Her relationships were not just about love or lust, but strategic alliances that would cement her power. You see, in the Ptolemaic dynasty, the family was more of a family circle. Cleopatra, in keeping with family traditions that would make a soap opera writer blush, was married to not one but two of her brothers. First up was Ptolemy XIII, who was all of 10 years old when he tied the knot with his 18-year-old sister. Talk about being thrown into the deep end. Their marital bliss was short-lived, however, as power struggles and political machinations led to Cleopatra being ousted from Egypt. But like any good protagonist, she wasn't about to take that lying down. After a brief interlude involving a rolled-up carpet and Julius Caesar, but we'll get to that, Cleopatra returned to power, this time with her other brother, Ptolemy XIV, as her co-ruler and husband. This marriage, too, was destined for the history books, but not for any heartwarming reasons. Let's just say that Ptolemy XIV's life was cut rather short, and suspicions fell on Cleopatra. Before she was the legendary lover of Caesar and Antony, Cleopatra was a sister with a knack for marrying her brothers and a somewhat alarming survival rate among her spouses. But hey, all's fair in love and dynasty politics, right? Let's dive into the juicy details of her relationship with Julius Caesar. Now, this was a relationship that was as much about love as it was about power. Cleopatra and Caesar first locked eyes in the summer of 48 BC, amidst the hustle and bustle of Alexandria. It was a time when Cleopatra was wrestling for power with her brother, and Caesar had just set foot in the city. Their relationship was a whirlwind of passion and politics, lasting until the Ides of March in 44 BC, when Caesar met his tragic end. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. During their time together, they were more than just lovers. They were allies, navigating the treacherous waters of power and ambition. Caesar played a crucial role in Cleopatra's ascension to the throne of Egypt, not just through his actions, but also through his death. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. At one point, they found themselves besieged in the palace in Alexandria. Outside, Cleopatra's sister, Arsinoe, was stirring up her own revolt against Cleopatra and Ptolemy XIII. But once Caesar's soldiers stepped foot in Alexandria, they managed to free the pair. So, was it love or was it a strategic alliance? Well, it was a bit of both. Cleopatra's relationship with Caesar was a masterstroke of political savvy and personal charm. It was a match made in power, if you will, and it would forever change the course of Egyptian and Roman history. After Caesar's untimely demise, Cleopatra found her type and got herself drawn to another powerful Roman, Mark Antony. Now, Antony was a bit of a character himself, broad shoulders, ridiculously handsome, and with a personality as big as his biceps. He was the life of any party he attended. Their love story kicked off in 41 BC, when Antony, who was then in charge of Rome's eastern territories, summoned Cleopatra to Tarsus. Now, this wasn't their first meeting. They had met in Rome when Cleopatra was the young mistress of his mentor, Caesar. But this time, Cleopatra was a fully evolved queen, at the peak of her intellectual power and beauty. Antony was smitten. Cleopatra, ever the strategist, knew how to make an entrance. She sailed into Tarsus in a spectacle of color and extravagance, designed to awe Antony and his cohorts, and it worked. Antony was head over heels, and Cleopatra wasn't done yet. She threw extravagant parties, flaunting her riches and outdoing Antony at every turn. Antony, ever the competitor, tried to match her splendor, but always fell short. Their attraction was genuine, but it was also politically savvy. Antony needed Cleopatra's wealth for his military endeavors, and Cleopatra needed Antony for protection and to expand her power. They had a playful, loving relationship, full of extravagant parties and teasing banter. Antony even followed Cleopatra to Alexandria, where they formed a drinking society they called the Society of the Inimitable Livers. However, their power couple status was not to last. Antony's military prowess began to falter, and instead of blaming his rash decisions on him, historians blamed Cleopatra. Antony's failures, coupled with their lavish lifestyle, soon attracted the attention of Octavian, who declared war on Cleopatra. Despite their combined power and wealth, they were no match for the Roman army. Antony, upon hearing of Cleopatra's supposed death, took his own life. Cleopatra, heartbroken and resolute, soon followed him, ending their legendary love story. So there you have it, Cleopatra and Mark Antony, a love story for the ages, full of passion, power, and political intrigue. It's a tale that has captivated historians and romantics alike for centuries. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wow, Cleopatra sure knew how to pick 'em. And you're not wrong. But remember, behind the scandal and the spectacle, there was a woman who was a brilliant strategist and a formidable queen. Cleopatra's reign wasn't all roses and sunshine. In fact, it was more like a Shakespearean tragedy, filled with political intrigue, power struggles, and a whole lot of drama. And, of course, It all ended with a dramatic climax that would make even the bard himself proud. Cleopatra's downfall began with the conflict with Octavian, the first emperor of Rome. Octavian was a master manipulator, and he used propaganda to paint Cleopatra as a seductress who used her charms to manipulate powerful men. He portrayed her as a threat to Rome, and his campaign was successful in turning public opinion against her. But Cleopatra wasn't one to go down without a fight. She tried to negotiate with Octavian, but he wasn't having any of it. He wanted Egypt under Roman control, and he wasn't going to let anything or anyone stand in his way. When it became clear that defeat was imminent, Cleopatra chose to end her life on her own terms. She reportedly committed suicide by allowing an asp, a venomous snake, to bite her. It was a dramatic end to a dramatic life, and it marked the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty. But let's not end on a downer. Despite her tragic end, Cleopatra left behind a legacy that has endured for over 2,000 years. She's remembered not just as a queen, but as a lover who used her charms to secure her power and protect her kingdom. Her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony have become the stuff of legend. She's been portrayed as a seductress, a manipulator, and a femme fatale. But let's be clear here, these portrayals are often more about the men she was involved with than about Cleopatra herself. They reflect the fears and fantasies of men who couldn't comprehend a woman wielding such power. Cleopatra, the savvy politician, the skilled negotiator, and the mother who wanted to secure a future for her children, met a tragic end. But her legacy? Oh, it's far from tragic. She's remembered as a lover, a queen, a symbol of power and seduction. And let's be real, who wouldn't want that on their resume? So here's to Cleopatra, the woman who made history, one lover at a time.